Unturned is presented by UpdateAI.
Okay, now we're all sales. We've agreed that even CS is sales, right? But like, you were not responsible for, presumably you were not responsible for, what's your sales cycle velocity and, what's the playbook for SDRs and some of these key top line metrics that you have on the revenue side of the org. How do you immediately step into that role? Or probably rather, how did you get your knowledge base and your education on those such revenue, top line revenue, new ARR metrics and activities coming from a background that was not directly in sales? It was only 5 minutes.
I know. Okay. Oh,
we got to do a do-over. Hey everybody, this is Josh. I'm really crestfallen in my voice and energy because we went into the first 5 minutes, and happens once every 6 months or so.
2 weeks.
I forgot to press record. So
it was so good. I had some really good zingers against Josh.
It was so good, and I pronounced Sangeeta's name correctly, and I had all the preparation I had, across that. We went into my psyche and my personality disorders. It was fun. But now here we are. We're going to fast forward through all that.
This will be the quickest that we get to introducing our guests ever.
Yes. I'm Josh. That's John.
Heyo.
Christy's out today. And we have Sangeeta Chakraborty, who's with us. And Sangeeta is the Chief Revenue Officer at Miro. She's been in that role for 1.5 years. Prior to that, she was the Chief Customer Officer. And so we want to talk to her and learn about that lineage. And she's also been part of some really cool companies. She's an advisor at Sendoso, across other ones as well, was at Okta. So with that, again, Sangeeta, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us.
Thanks for having me.
And John, I feel like this is how it should be, right? Because usually we do 5 minutes of the banter and stuff. And this was just 1 minute. We were in and we were out. And I feel like our guests our guests definitely, but our listeners are going to appreciate that.
We'll see. I get a lot of comments on my banter. So that's kind of what I bring to the table.
Yeah.
So,
I thought that's what I bring to the table because I don't bring anything else.
That's amazing. Okay. Sangeeta. Hello.
Sangeeta.
I'm so sorry. There we go. See, already off the bat. I won't make the same joke that I made before we hit recording and just let our guests, our listeners wonder. You transitioned out of Chief Customer Officer into Chief Revenue Officer. So it's spent about 1.5 years in both roles. I would love to hear what's the biggest difference that you're seeing. Obviously, we're talking about revenue versus customer, but give me kind of the gut from you, because I don't see much revenue direct. There's some services and there's some experience in there from your back, but this is one of your first sales kind of roles. It looks like, at least that I can see. Correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but I would just love to hear kind of the biggest transition on the C-suite from coming from the customer voice over to the revenue side.
Yeah. So I will say it's a bit of unusual transition, but what I may be different in customer success roles from others is that I've always had some kind of a revenue number that I was driving. So at Checker, for example, I drove all of the expansion number. At other places, I had a services number, always had renewals. So it's not that you don't have the number. What is absolutely new to me here is the new logo side of it. So it's that business. So that's one. Secondly, I may be of the few that go into that debate of separation of church versus state in terms of, can CSMs hold a number? Or does it break all the laws of natural physics around customer success, and CSMs would get the wrong incentives and you would lose trust with their customers, blah, blah, or they cannot have a commercial conversation? I don't believe any of that is true. I think that when you sell from a position of trust, and you sell as somebody who understands the customer well and deep, and you put forward the customer's best interests and figure out how to have a value-driven conversation. And all the best CSMs I know are amazing at that. So why wouldn't you do the rest of it? So I actually was very successful in doing this model with CSMs at Checker, for example. And you have to, of course, think about the profile that you hire. I don't think every CSM fits into that profile. For me, it was a natural outcome. And it just further cemented my approach in customer success from the start, that we ultimately are the best sellers, and you have to be driving value, you have to drive business. And I've spoken about this before, that there isn't anything called post-sales, and we should ban the concept because never do stop selling in SaaS. And so I don't feel like I made this very large leap or jump over into any other different kind of job. I do think that the titles have been.
Wait, can I stop you on that for a second? Because that's like, I've never actually heard that before. But it's very, I don't know, profound. I don't know if it's not profound, but it's important that we shouldn't have the title post sales, because that's what you say. Like my company, we service pre and post sales. But you're right. Like, why is it post sales? Because that's just marginalizing and labeling mainly incorrectly the entire post sales function.
Well, but it's also put us into this problem where CSMs think that they shouldn't own a number. They think that they shouldn't talk revenue. And Josh and Christy and I were at CS Week in New York last week, and this was a big theme. Almost everybody that was on stage was saying, like, stop saying post sales.
Oh, you heard that before? I was going to give
week.
Sangeeta credit for like inspiring this and being the author of this.
I'm sure they read
just like, Nick
her.
Mehta is the one that created customer success as a category. Like Sangeeta was the one who created non-post sales as the category.
Yeah, but if we're always pre-sales.
No, I will take credit for it, because I think Emmanuel brought it up, but Emmanuel and I were discussing this before she went to the event, and she said, I'm going to bring you up. I think that people don't talk about this enough, and people have accepted that this term from the 1970s, when we sold perpetual software, still makes sense in this era. It doesn't. Like even the days of SaaS coming up to us like 20 years ago, we should have stopped saying this right then. We still say it.
Yeah.
And it's now ingrained. So everywhere I hear it, I try to put an end to it.
I love that. Okay, so then if we're living in this new world where we are all like we believe part of sales, do you think with your role coming out of a lot of customer success, a lot of services where you owned long-term relationships, is that shaping perhaps the way that you're thinking about even placement of hiring in the front end sales, right? So bringing on new businesses. How are you thinking through even the hiring process of sales leaders to make sure that there is this waterfall into new logo versus net retention?
We think we need to be hiring people that are thinking long-term, that are thinking the life cycle of the customer. And it's not just the hiring profile. You're looking for that mindset. You are also setting up everything, the systems, the incentive plans, the way they look at their books, the way CSMs and sales teams work together in pods, and how they work together to service the customer. I think it has to be this continuous loop of recurring value and the customer lifecycle.
Okay, now we're all sales. We've agreed that even CS is sales, right? But like, you were not responsible for, presumably you were not responsible for, what's your sales cycle velocity and, what's the playbook for SDRs and like, some of these key top line metrics that you have on the revenue side of the org. How do you immediately step into that role? Or probably rather, how did you get your knowledge base and your education on like those such revenue, top line revenue, new ARR metrics and activities coming from a background that was not directly in sales? I mean, you've worked in go-to-market, but you've never been an AE. You've never been a director of sales. Where did that come from? And maybe probably still is coming from, right? That knowledge base that you're learning. Yeah.
I think sales cycle was still valid because you can't drive expansion sales without worrying about all of those numbers. And there is an element of BDRs and SDRs in that. But you're right. A lot of the... So taking a step back, people think of sales as, the arithmetic of sales. Like, how am I going to do my segmentation model? And how many books are going to be cut? And how many reps am I going to take? And there's basically a backward arithmetic. And I think that isn't sales. That's operations. Anybody can do that. You just have to go talk to a bunch of people, read your systems and understand your data and understand how it all works together. And it just takes curiosity. And I've been curious all my life. So I haven't sort of said, okay, I'm going to never understand the rest of the business because I need to just worry about mine. I think as leaders, we need to be company leaders, not functional leaders. So there was a lot of curiosity. I studied that. It isn't honestly rocket science. Sorry for all the people that have been selling for 30 years. It isn't that hard. What is really hard, and I think continuously hard, is that how do you understand your ecosystem to present the best business case possible for your business continuously to your customer? And that's the art of selling. That, I think, is what I'm trying to learn from the best continuously. The best salespeople, the best sales leaders, the best presidents and CROs, to see how do they bring that art into the field. The math, I think that isn't hard at all. Like you've all got college degrees. You're not, it's arithmetic.
Yeah. So the art of the deal. So you've read a lot of Donald Trump book literature to catch up.
I mean, honestly, not a bad seller.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We'll stop it at that.
Yeah.
But where are you getting that? Like, where are you getting that art of the deal? Like I mean, you're obviously like, you're not at the level of needing to instill like the cold calling tactics to your first year SDRs, but like there is something to be said for somebody who went through all those, rungs of the ladder and kind of knows. So where are you getting both the tactical and the more soft skill nuances to that entire org?
I think of go-to-market actually different from other people in terms of it needs a product-oriented thing. Like it is something that we think of the product team as having an outcome in mind, designing a product, thinking about their outcome, then doing sort of the alpha, beta, go live. What I think we have to do here is to come back to first principles on the go-to-market motion as well, and look at it in that way. So it is also a product that we're building. We have an outcome in mind. We have to test a few hypotheses to see, does this play work better than others? And then that's the way we look at it in Miro. And we're in this constant iteration mode where you have to give the team sort of the room to go do this testing. And then once you know what works, you scale that up. And we've got really amazing people that lead these functions that are continuously working together with our product marketing teams to say, here's the play we're going to be running. We're going to test it. And if it works well and we see the outcomes, then we start scaling it.
Yeah. So you delegate, obviously. You delegate the ideation around the strategy.
No, you don't delegate the ideation. I think you have to be very much a part of the ideation. But once you've figured out these are the hypotheses we're going to test, like this is the sales play we're going to test. Here's the value proposition. Here's the hypothesis for the value. Here's the way we're going to talk to the ICP. Here's the ICP. And here's the conversation and the series of plays that we're going to have as you progress it. That's what you are part of. And then you let the teams execute and come back and give you the data. And then you let that data figure out what you scale. So
you're really a COO, right? Like what you're saying, I'm being facetious, but you're saying that it's really all comes down to operations and making the trains run on time and leadership and management at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think the whole point about titles, by the way, is such an ultimate vanity metric. Like it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, do you know how to take the value that you're producing in a product and figure out how you articulate that in a business sense, figure out who it's going to resonate most with, and then how do you outreach to them and take them through that buyer journey so you get to the outcomes. I think that's the holy path. You can't have too many variations. Just figure out the best and smartest way to scale that up.
Yeah. Oh, hold on, John. You're talking, but either you're not producing air or...
Well, I was typing again, and Josh told me not to type on the podcast anymore because it's very loud, and I'm respectful of that. Yeah. Okay, I was asking it. So one of the things that I liked about what you just said is I have this very clear segmentation just because I've reported to CROs and I've reported to CCOs, and when I was an IC, I had a very different experience. It was very clear that the leadership viewed what we should be doing very differently. Now, the way that you explained it, I think is a very harmonious perspective. You talked about services. You talked about, kind of the professional services side that you still have to take them through that buyer's journey. You still have to be able to validate value and outcomes and all of those things. And there is no difference between talking to somebody that you know versus somebody cold calling you and then getting to know somebody, right? It really comes down to the happy path. So I really like the way that you synthesize that. I also don't like these big segments where we just kind of silo ourselves into individual roles. That was a little bit of a preamble, but I want to know, in your current role, how are you staying close to the customer? How often are you getting on calls with customers? Is it just executive connects, or are you meeting with these folks to help you understand the buyer's journey, to help you understand what these folks are going through as you kind of synthesize these bigger operational processes.
So the question really is, how are you understanding the buyer's journey now? It could be through calls or through other things. And actually, Sangeeta, if you don't mind, we usually do this up front, but it's kind of fluff and we just skipped through it this time. If you could give us the context of your organization, like what your org layout looks like, the general numbers, because people are trying to learn from you in this conversation, right? And so that'll give them a sense of your answers accordingly.
Yeah, we are approximately 600 or so. I can't share more details, but sort of this is the org.
You're 600 people in your org? Not the company, but your org is 600?
Yes, the company is about 1,800. And we are a global organization in 13 hubs across the world. And we serve, I can't share a number of customers, enterprise customers, I would say over 2,000. We have a huge self-service footprint. And what else would be interesting? We serve in multiple markets around the world. So in terms of the buyer's journey, I think the interesting thing, if you are not aware and you're a user of the product, is we are releasing our biggest product launch literally tomorrow. And so be ready to be excited. And I'm hoping it blows your socks off. So we are actually looking at the buyer's journey again, because we have evolved so much from our roots as a whiteboard to becoming a workspace and solving very different problems for sort of elevated the problem set to what we were doing before. That we're looking at the buyer's journey again. How do you quickly get people to understand what we do, given that we had such a strong brand in a very different, and we still do that. We still do have whiteboard use cases, but we are doing far more than that.
Wow. And so how are you getting to the buyer's journey? Like, how are you specifically hearing the voice of the customer?
I speak with executive buyers. I would say the majority of my discussions are those. I am essentially doing the evangelism right now, given the new product direction with the executive thought leaders. I do speak with some sort of champion level buyers as well. I am very involved with customer conversations, virtually, on site, in person. My best moments are when I'm with customers. I think that's what is the most exciting time for all of us, I would say, on the call. So I'm right there in the trenches. And then other than that, I'm paying close attention to what the team is bringing back in terms of data as they're going around and pitching it as well.
You got this launch tomorrow. Now, this podcast, you can trust me or not, but this podcast will go out on Wednesday. We're filming on Monday.
So the day after.
The day after.
Uh-huh.
So what can you share to amp people up for this amazing Miro product announcement?
They're going to hear it after the announcement. But I'm going to say this: if you missed it, then I would say go back to Miro and on our website, go listen to the recording, because this is, I think, for the first time, we have a platform that allows you to build a product from end to end. I mean, starting from the discovery part of taking customer insight in, here's the product I'm going to, let's say, hypothetically, I'm going to build the next generation car. You're going to bring in customer feedback. You're going to do a series of ideation with all the design builders in your company across different time zones. This is what Miro used to be used for the most. It's the brainstorming and the ideation. But then it would stop there. But what you can now do is actually do all of the planning and the definition, because of all of our integrations with UpdateAI systems and advanced use cases that allow you to do customer journey mapping and prototyping and doing all of the design work and the collaboration across time zones and teams. And then you can go all the way into product build and delivery because of the capabilities that we've got. I will not steal that thunder. I needed to go back and listen to that announcement.
Oh, come on, Sangeeta. We just want to leak a little news. Just let us, we've never had the opportunity to be like the ground source of truth on leaking important information. This could be our moment.
I don't think it's going to be our moment.
No. Hey, everybody, it's Josh. I'm taking a quick break from the podcast to tell you a bit about UpdateAI. I started UpdateAI to solve two major challenges for CS teams. The first is that we save CSMs 4 to 5 hours per week with our productivity through AI. Secondly, we give leaders a window into all the conversations across each account and the entire portfolio, So we help knowledge transfer, we help increase the coverage model of your CS teams, and we help you detect emerging patterns in what your customers are telling your CSMs across all the risks, product feedback, advocacy moments, and expansion opportunities. So come check us out at www.updateai. It's completely free to sign up and trial. So I feel like, though, I actually am sensing from what you're saying, there's a trend there around some consolidation and around everybody really, large companies really wanting to own the data, own the workflow. And, AKA, I'm sure on your roadmap for the next 10 years is owning all the agent AI workflows, right? What do you think around kind of the trends that are going on right now? Because I feel like what you guys are about to launch is becoming more of like a full end-to-end workflow workspace. Is a pattern that we're starting to see.
The problem that we noticed is that, and I think it resonated with you guys, we're looking at different applications throughout the day to get taken down. So there's project switching. I saw numbers from McKinsey, 1,200 application switches during the day. We're going from one system to the other, to the other,
Wow.
to the other. It's an average knowledge worker. And we're trying to produce this knowledge output. And this is not productive or effective. And there's everything that gets in the way when you have knowledge in this system. Your collaboration is on this systems, and you can't in one place to get a single view. That's the problem that we're solving. And then AI comes in is that at the moment, AI does, let's say, Josh and John, you bring your best listeners and you have this huge brainstorming session and you have hundreds of sticky notes now. Everybody's giving you their ideas. Now you have to figure out what do I do with it? And the canvas, that is Miro, is the ultimate AI prompt. You've got all of these prompts. So what you could do is, I'm sure there's some ideas that are repeated. So you would have to go take a break and come back, read all of them, cluster them. Now you can have AI do all of that by sentiment, by groups, and it can suggest the sidekick, the AI sidekick is the second thing. It can come back and say, as a persona, I can suggest ideas that you might have missed. And then you can do more and more automation of the process that follows. Like, for example, somebody has to write that down in a document. Why do you need to write that down since you have Gen AI? To read all of that, right, summarize it, and you have a starting point. So what we're trying to do is the busy work is just not fun, should not be needed. Let's try and get that taken care of. Have AI then even augment it so you can get better ideas. But ultimately, you should have one workspace that the entire company is working on when you're producing a new product, whatever the product is.
That's great. We're all just a bunch of SaaS leaders trying to eliminate busy work.
Well, it's interesting because, you see these like kind of Venn diagrams of features. And when you think of Miro, obviously, initially my first experience was the whiteboard experience, right? But as you're kind of talking about this, there is a ton of intelligence that needs to go into capturing audio and capturing sentiment. And this is something that was transformational for us at User Testing. You guys are also customers of ours. So a lot of, the stuff that you've built from a product standpoint has come through our processes, right? And I'm seeing almost every company, whether you think that they are a video company or an audio company, having to capture audio, having to capture a conversation, having to be like not just a note taker, but I mean, how many times have you been on a Zoom call and like 9 people joined with 9 different note takers? And there, there's just this kind of like, there's this big blob of everybody's trying to do the same thing. There's got to be a seamless way within platforms to have that experience that is similar, that can then disseminate, right? So as you're kind of talking through collaboration, what are some really interesting things that like your CSMs are doing with the tool to kind of dog food some of this with their customers? How are they kind of capturing that, the power of Miro in their day jobs?
So it's all been an evolution, right? So the first thing that we started doing with customers is we think that we are going to come to you with a sales plan that we think is going to set up for success, unless it's a very much part of applications. First thing we do is that joint animation together on the canvas that we continuously keep live updated. And that allows our customers to feel like they're part of their outcome. So they're not looking at a PowerPoint slide that they can't touch. They're looking at a board that everybody can jump in and weigh in. And it isn't the one person. It is however many people you want in the customer to come together. So that's one. Secondly, we also work to understand how can we continuously give them I would say AI added value. So, for example, if we're seeing a customer solve a certain problem and we know that we've solved it somewhere else, we see what can we take from there to sort of give them some joint knowledge. Now we have so many customers, you have to find a way to consolidate that and find the nuggets. So we have that in our internal processes to go surface that up to the customer and so on. So there's been many, many advances of that. But I think the biggest thing that Miro does is that it helps the customer feel like they are in charge of driving this ship together, mixing metaphors, piloting the ship together, versus feeling like there is a vendor and there is an expert on the vendor that tells me what to do. Instead, we're really trying hard to be a business partner. We're opening up that opportunity for them to continuously engage as their business changes, work with us to see what does the success outcome look like. So we bring that collaboration in.
Sangeeta, I want to leave us off here with one last question for you. So you've got a giant purview and mandate within the org. So I'm not going to ask you just like what your top priorities are going into Q1, because it's like, well, make more money, right? Or whatever. It's going to be something super high level. Let's break that down a little bit across the journey, as it will, of your team. Thinking about the relationship between what formerly was considered pre and post sales. Now we're just going to say it's a seamless customer go-to-market motion.
Go-to-market.
Yes.
Yes.
What's the within that handoff, within that phase of your life cycle? What's the top priority going into the new year?
I think it's being endlessly curious and deeply introspective about the customer, and not looking at everyone, just being, here's a deal we need to close. So it really is in instilling those values and having the system that allows them to thrive in this new things. It doesn't help if I say, you guys have to work together, but the system has to allow them. The ways of working has to allow, the incentive plans have to allow, and the way we inspect the business has to allow. And that's what we're trying to drive in terms of systemic change. We've been empowered pods as our concept at Miro, which is you have to work as a cross-functional unit with a joint outcome, even though you may belong to different functional parts of the company. And then you set up the system so that we're looking at it in that one fashion. So it's really taking away as much as possible the division between the closing of the customer and then making the customer successful. It's one continuous loop.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this was great. We need beacons like you within the space. Folks that have really kind of climbed through and progressed in their careers and are now leading some amazing organizations and teams within those. And so thank you for being that example. Thank you for sharing your insights and your experiences, and wishing you an amazing product announcement yesterday.
And there's no post-sales.
There's no post-sales.
We're going to make t-shirts for that.
And everybody go to Miro.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks for having me, Josh. And
Thanks.
Good to meet you.
Bye.
Bye.